Yeah, we're going to have Chris Capossela on today, who is kind of a big deal at Microsoft. He's the head of all of marketing for the entire company. He's the chief marketing officer.
Holy cow.
Because not only is Chris CMO, we should also mention he's on the senior leadership team at Microsoft, which means he's in the inner circle. He's like one of those guys who has the powwow every
Like the Star
week.
Chamber.
I love it.
With the people. So he kind of knows like what was good, what maybe needed some improvement, kind of how I'd be interested how he'd grade Microsoft's year.
Windows 10 for sure was an incredibly important release for us and milestone for us, and getting 110 million people to upgrade in the first 10 weeks. And that has continued to move in a really positive direction. And in the new year, we'll probably have more to share on the latest numbers there. But just getting the install base to be really large is so critical to getting developers back to writing Windows apps. And it's really our best shot at phone apps, as you have mentioned many times. That is the strategy to getting developers back in the fold. The fact that we've upgraded most of the Xbox Ones to Windows 10 already is a big step forward. We delayed the Windows Phone, Windows Mobile rollout a little bit, but we're excited to get that finished and get as many phones as we can possibly upgraded. But getting Windows 10 done, having it be well received, of course, some bumps along the way, as we would expect. That was a major milestone for us, and we've got to smooth out those bumps. We've got to get the upgrades happening more smoothly, more frequently. But creating this service is a huge benefit for the year. There's no doubt that the hardware has generated a huge amount of press, from HoloLens to Book. Pro 4 generated some press. Most people, of course, are more interested in the bright, shiny new products. But Pro 4 for me is the real winner. It's the one that we'll do the most volume on. It's the one that I think is the best experience right now, and it'll get better and better and better. So for me, the hardware is secondary to Windows 10, but it's incredibly important to the Windows 10 story as well. Xbox, I think, would be a highlight in a bunch of ways too. The two that you spend less time talking about that I think the SLT, the senior leadership team, would say are just incredibly important to us. Mary Jo just mentioned both of them. Office 365 and the transition to the cloud is something you guys sort of take for granted almost, because you use it, you see that it's going to happen. But the fact that really is happening is something that a lot of analysts said we'd never successfully do. And gosh, that's just, we're thrilled that roughly 50% of our consumers are choosing to buy Office 365. We're 18 million or more Office consumers are paying for the subscription service. Those are amazing numbers. Netflix is probably at 40 million, 45 million. So for a productivity suite to be at 18 in only a couple of years, we're thrilled with that. But then the enterprise adoption of Office 365 has just been amazing. And so we're pretty excited about Office transitioning to the cloud. The one you guys spend the least time talking about on the show, if there's one thing I would say, is Azure, the Azure, cloud platform. But from a all things Microsoft, this really was the year that Azure became number 2 in what we think is going to be a 2-horse race with Amazon, with AWS. And we were just thrilled at our last quarterly earnings, where a lot of the press started writing about how the cloud lives in Seattle, and it's Amazon and it's Microsoft. Not the consumer, ad-funded cloud, but the business cloud. And for us and for the future of our company, that's just unbelievably important. So the fourth one that you may not see as much is really the culture and the cultural change that Satya has brought about the company. And you guys have gotten some exposure to him. You've seen him out of events. You've seen how we've tried to change the staging and, make sure we look like a different company in our marketing. But most importantly, just are we authentic to who Satya is? And I don't think you can see that as much in the products we ship or, how we show up every week. But if you were in the halls of the company each week, I think the cultural difference is really stark. And we got a long way to go. But that would be the fourth thing, is I think he's established a new culture that most employees seem to be really eager to try to live, and that part's really fun as a longtime Microsoft person.
No, you drew a differentiation, which I really liked, between what you called the ad-supported cloud services for consumers and you didn't really say it this way, but let's just say the kind of paid or licensed cloud services that businesses consume. And I mean, this does sort of correspond to something that I wrote recently, but more to the point, I think that's and I never thought to make that differentiation. And do you see, so in other words, you think that that part of it is essentially going to become a two-horse race, as you said, between you and Amazon?
I do. I think it's going to be hard for others to catch up. I mean, clearly Google has the capability. They certainly have the the IQ and the DNA if they wanted to go after it. But they've been so much of their revenue, 97% of the revenue is ad funded, and so it's hard for them to sort of get excited about a different model. I think, whereas for us and for Amazon, that's something that's very natural to us.
Moved into it very naturally.
Yeah, we've been there on the enterprise side for many years, and moving it from a volume license to the cloud is a pretty natural thing. Now, Oracle is going to talk about how much of their revenue is cloud based, and I just don't. I like our position and Amazon's position, frankly, for the business cloud, and I think the other players in the space are going to have a hard time with the scale that Amazon and Microsoft are operating at. And this is complicated stuff to make enterprises be able to trust your cloud and understand how you run a primary and a secondary data center and how you do data sovereignty and all this stuff that I think will be hard if you're not 1,000% committed. And that's why we think it's a two-horse race. If you're going to be successful in the cloud, you need to provide a cloud service that anyone can get started with. They can sign up in 30 seconds. They can be sort of blown away within the first 5 minutes, and then they start using the thing. And making the product free or some set of functionality free is a very important way to make that happen. But it has deep engineering implications too. I can make something free, but if the sign-up process requires a phone call to Microsoft or some procurement person to sign something, forget it. It's sort of over. So we've had to make the sign-up process in the first 5 minutes really, really smooth and easy. And then if you have these, sales leaders or a marketing leader using this new cloud service for free, they can play around with it. They can sort of get really excited about it. And then hopefully you're smart about what you put behind a paywall so that they're going to run into some reasonable limitation with the free product, and then that'll lead to the procurement discussion. But you can get people to fall in love with your product by making an important set of functionality free. Power BI is probably the best example of this for us this past year, where you can go to powerbi.com, and the team had a goal of a small number of clicks to sign up, and then they had this 5 minutes to wow design goal of making that first 5 minutes with Power BI something that you'd just be blown away by. So making it super easy for you to connect to your Excel spreadsheets or your SharePoint lists or Salesforce or CRM and just immediately start visualizing your data. That was really key for us, that mental model. It's not just about the pricing. It's actually about the delight of the engineering work that happens in the first 5 minutes that makes the pricing actually work. Gamers do this super well. Casual gamers on the Google App Store or Apple's store, that freemium model is just incredibly prevalent in the gaming world, and they make it pretty darn easy to get started. And so how do you bring that model to the enterprise world? We're playing with all sorts of things like that. This is the year we made Office free on 10-inch and below screens, and we've had over 200 million Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook downloads on iOS and Android since making that move to a free, essentially free apps if you're using a screen size that's 10 inches and below. That's another type of freemium. So there are many models of them. Skype is free for consumers, but then we charge for it for enterprises. There's not one simple model that works for all product types. So we're playing with lots of different types of freemium. Yeah. The best. Here's the product we totally underestimated. This is the one where, oh gosh, if I could have built like 10 times the number I built, I would have.
Interesting.
This is the Elite controller.
We
got some feedback.
It's really expensive.
Why would anyone buy this thing? But it's the most. Yeah, everybody wants it.
Gamers.
And we got we got that feedback at E3 that it was awesome, but maybe the price was a little too high. And so that influenced how many we produced. And on the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving, myself and Kevin Turner, our COO, and the guy who runs our stores, David Porter, we go around and visit like 30 or 40 different stores, Best Buy and GameStop and AT&T and Verizon and Microsoft stores, just to kind of see how things look. And the one thing we heard from everybody was you needed to make way more of these controllers. So that's a beautiful product.
It's sold out everywhere. But
yes. No, it is in stock some places, but I think we missed a few sales by running out in various locations. Would have never guessed it. $150, controller. You can get an Xbox 360 for not much more.
I know, for the same price, exactly.
Yeah, but gamers, they want every edge they can get, and that's the
totally.
And it really is that good. I think that's the thing. Once you feel that thing in your hand and the sheer kind of metal quality of it, you realize how awesome it really is.
Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful piece of work. And I think it's a lesson for us in often we undervalue the accessories and we focus so much on the Pro or the Book or the console, and we forget that there's real delight in the mouse and the keyboard and the controller.
So I mean, you buy the box once, but then the controller, could be something that really extends the life of it.
Totally right. Totally right. In fact, when we came out with Surface Pro 4, we were out, and so I went to a bunch of stores trying to buy one, and instead what I got was the Surface Pro 4 keyboard, the black keyboard with the fingerprint reader, and I added it to my Surface Pro 3, upgraded it to Windows 10, and I was, I was very surprised how fresh.
You should have used the tagline. It's like getting a new computer in your computer.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And Windows Hello, Windows Hello worked with the fingerprint reader. Yep. It's tided me over until we filled the channel with Surface Pro 4.
Right.
As we've moved Windows to a service, we're trying to find the right balance. Look, we made Windows 10 for free for anybody who had a Windows 8 or Windows 7 machine, and that was, again, you could call that freemium if you want, but that was a decision, we didn't take that decision lightly. For us, it's just so incredibly important to try to end the fragmentation of the Windows install base. And so we think every machine that's capable of running Windows 10, we should be doing everything we, possibly can to get people to move to Windows 10. We always want to give them the choice, and we're trying to find the right UI constructs. We're trying to find the right update constructs that we think are going to, please as many people as possible. But we do worry when people are running an operating system that's 10 years old that the next printer they buy isn't going to work well, or they buy a new game. They buy Fallout 4, a very popular game, and it doesn't work on a bunch of older machines. And so as we're pushing our ISV partners and our hardware partners to build great new stuff that takes advantage of Windows 10, that obviously makes the old stuff really bad, and not to mention viruses and security problems. So we really are trying to push people to get to Windows 10. Now, the good thing about Windows is that lots and lots of people care, and you get constant feedback. We're willing to put up with some level of discomfort if we feel like we're getting more and more people to a safer, better operating system that's frankly better for everyone in the ecosystem. It's better for Intel, it's better for Dell, HP, it's better for our customers. But there's no doubt we're trying to find the right balance. There's no doubt, if we could start it all over, we would have done a couple of things differently, I think. The reality is, with most modern devices, people just take it for granted that the device is going to constantly be updated, whether it's your iPhone or your Android tablet or what have you. People are very, very comfortable with that notion. Xbox One owners are very comfortable with that notion that it's just going to stay up to date. PCs, because of the history and the legacy, it's slightly uncomfortable for more people. And so we're going to keep at it. We're going to try to find that right balance. But we just know there's a lot of people out there who will constantly kick the can down the street without a little bit more of a, frankly, a push. And so, there's no doubt with a base as big as ours, it's hard to move anyone to a new model without angering some people. We don't want to anger anybody, but we do feel a responsibility to get people to a much better place. And we think Windows 10, it is a much better place than Windows 7. We'll always give you a way out, but we're trying to find the right balance. Well, you absolutely are in control of your own data, for sure, no doubt about it, and that's core to every privacy statement we've made. I mean, the customer owns their data. You get to control what happens to your data. With Cortana, who gets smarter and smarter about you, there's a notebook that stores all of your likes and dislikes, and you can stop it, you can empty it. You don't have to use Cortana. So, I think Apple and Microsoft have both been incredibly clear that the consumer or the customer owns their own data. Now, there is telemetry on how your machine is performing that we do collect with Windows 10. Is the thing crashing? What kind of antivirus programs are running? How long does it take to boot? How long does it take to go to sleep? Are there viruses on the machine? So we feel a responsibility to keep that system as high performing as possible. And there is that aspect of Windows 10, but it has nothing to do with your personal data. That's completely in your own control. And so, it's I think the notion of privacy with high tech is unbelievably important. And I think, the companies who have gotten this and who've understood this have come out very loud and clear in the last year on what their privacy policy is and what their business model is. We don't scan your email to serve you ads. That's incredibly clear. We've stated that multiple times. We'll continue to state that. That's something that's really, really important to us. You saw Tim Cook on 60 Minutes talking about encryption and why encryption is important to sort of Apple's privacy policy. These are good things that Apple and Microsoft are coming out and being very clear on their stance on privacy. I think consumers need to hear it, but businesses, believe it or they need to hear it too. They want to know as much as anybody, how this data is flowing around the world. At what points would you turn data over to a government? All of these things are very important. They're not going away. It's not like you can say, just stop doing it. That's crazy. We have to keep your system stable. We have to, patch Defender with new signatures so that we'll stop your machine from getting infected. That's just the reality of the world. And yet we think we also have to be really clear on what our policies are, what our deep beliefs are. And our number one belief is you own your own data. Flat. That's it. End of story.
Okay, I have one I want to throw out there. Give me something to hope for in the new year as a Windows Phone fan, Chris.
Yeah.
Because I'm abandoning hope. This year, I actually even toyed with the idea of going Apple. And you know what? For me, that's the rock bottom right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
I hear you.
That's the closing the bar moment.
I just spit out my coffee. Oh my God.
Yeah, so, a couple of things I would say. Number one, you guys have done, I think, a very good job sort of sussing this out and talking about it on the show. We're clearly very cognizant of our position in the phone world. And frankly, we've done the hard yards to retrench and have an approach that in this coming year is very much about trying to satisfy our fans and trying to have a great success in the business world for businesses who want to buy phones for their employees. I've played around with the 650 and the 950. They're both very, very good phones. I think Windows 10 is much nicer on the 950, which is my main phone, than I was experiencing with, the 840 and Windows 8. So the experience is getting better and better and better. You hopefully start to see some of the app work, starting to pay off. This week, we've just announced a bunch of apps. You talked to Steve Guggenheimer, and you can check out his post with Netflix and Uber and a bunch of other apps. The more we get a big install base for Windows 10, the better off our phone is. Just today, the Beatles' 17 albums are now available on almost every streaming service, including Groove Music. So now on my Windows phone, when I'm not listening to podcasts of you guys, I can be listening to 17 albums and buy them.
It's a tough call
on my
which
phone.
one you want to listen to. But.
Totally. Well, you'd be surprised. There's a role for both. The dulcet tones of Mary Jo and Paul, they have a role in my world. But being able to just on your phone go buy one of those 17 albums, that's a great capability that we're bringing to all our devices. That's available on Xbox. That's available on your Surface devices, your Windows devices from third parties, and of course your phone. Now, I think we have to do more breakthrough work. The work we've done with the 950, the 650, it's solid. The camera's fantastic. It's a wonderful, there's some wonderful wonderful capabilities there. But to really do something that I think would allow me to compete for a 15-year-old's dollars on a phone and ask them to move from an iPhone to one of our phones, I think we need more breakthrough work. We need more breakthrough hardware work. We need more breakthrough experiences. You can see Continuum as an interesting idea.
Snapchat, let's face it. That's all you really need if you want a 15-year-old.
You need Snapchat. You need Instagram, of course, which we were lacking for a while. You need Uber. Got to have it. It's just there's 10, 15 that you just have to have on the phone. But I also think, with Surface, we had a bunch of early misfires, but that notion of a tablet that could replace your laptop, that notion of saying, hey, Apple wants to sell you an iPad and they want to sell you a Mac, we think there's one device that exploits the seam between those two devices. We need some sort of spiritual equivalent on the phone side that doesn't just feel like it's a phone for people who love Windows. It's got to be a phone that's sort of like, wow, that's a real shocker, or that's a real breakthrough, and that's going to make me pause before I buy my 17th iPhone. And we need time to actually go build that.
Yep.
What about the new carrier paradigm?
Oh,
I love this one. I was hoping you'd ask me about this one.
Actually, the chat room brought.
Let me read from a prepared statement.
Go for it.
Well, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Well, there's two.
The new relationship between Microsoft carriers and updates.
Yeah. So, gosh, we're so pleased to have Windows as a service. I can't say it enough. I got an update on my 950. I bought it, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when I was on that fun retail tour with Kevin and David. I bought a 950, and when it came with Windows 10, and then 3 weeks later or something, there was an update, and it, in my case, it worked. I know that wasn't the case in everybody's situation, but that was it. It didn't, AT&T didn't have to go through their technical assurance 10-week process, and T-Mobile didn't have to happen. It literally just came out.
What changed? I mean, how did that happen? Do you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, for us, the core was just, essentially catching up to the model that is the modern model, where if you have a core OS that's on the device, that's just something that the company who makes that OS has the responsibility to keep up to date, to keep safe. And so, we're thrilled to be in that model where we can update Windows 10 just direct to the consumer. And it's just frankly, it's just the better model. It doesn't take you 15 weeks when we're done with the code to get it out to your customers. And we're really thrilled to have reached that point. We'll get better and better ourselves at releasing these updates, so we don't have to pull them back and fix a bug we missed and then push it out again. But the fact that we could just do that straight to the consumer, it's such a better world to be in. And we're thrilled to finally be there with Windows 10.
I want to know, when is the 650 going to come out?
I thought she was going to ask when I can get a 950 on Verizon, Mary Jo. I really was sure. I was really positive.
What, Leo? I've given up.
I'm just going to badger him about phone all day long.
Given that up.
I know Chris has nothing to do with that and can't force anything to.
Yeah.
But
sure.
Yeah, I don't think we have a date yet announced on that one. The phone team would probably say, no, we've already announced it, and here's the exact date. But I don't think we actually do have that out as a published date yet. So stay tuned for more on that front.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I didn't ask about Verizon because I'm kind of giving up hope. Or maybe I should just ask you, should I give up hope that Verizon is going to
there you go.
be a carrier for you
it's
guys?
It's a false god, Mary Jo.
I know.
Well, I would certainly never give up hope on someone as important as Verizon. Obviously just a huge American telco. The telcos themselves, typically in every country, there's one or two that are just unbelievably powerful. And so if you want to be a player in the phone business, at some point you're going to have to do the work. Verizon's been a really tough one for us historically, as Paul has talked about pretty articulately on the show before. They've got some tech that is very specific to Verizon's network that is, no one really wants to hear any of this sob story from our our perspective. But it does take a lot of extra engineering work on our part to make our stuff work on Verizon's sort of unique, I'll call it, network. Whereas when we do work for AT&T, it actually helps with a bunch of other, operators. And so Verizon's always what I'd call sort of an expensive piece of work for us to do. And then historically, we just have not done well together. We haven't delivered for them in many cases, and they have not delivered for us in many cases. And both sides would be the first to say that, because we've said it to each other. And whether it's walking into an AT&T store and having a pretty good experience compared to a different store, or whether it's the work we've done to deliver on time, we've frankly done a better job with AT&T delivering our part of the bargain on time and consistently than we have with Verizon. So unfortunately, that we've had a very, very checkered execution with them. And so for now, as we're sort of retrenching, we've obviously made that hard decision. But everyone's telling both of us, hey, please don't let this go. Please keep at this. Please figure out a way to make it work. Satya's constantly asking me about it as well. And so it's not something we take lightly. As we finish the retrenchment and start to bring exciting new things to market, we'll of course want to be in as many places as you possibly can. But we made the tough call in the near term to pick the partners that we think we can do the best work with, and that's really been AT&T. We've really landed on this notion of empowerment as the brand essence for the company. And if Apple stands for cool and Google stands for search and Facebook stands for sharing, Microsoft stands for empowerment. It's all about, empowering you guys to do your job, empowering you to have this broadcast using Skype or sharing notes using OneNote, even if we haven't gotten it just right yet. It's about the empowerment of what we enable other people to do. And our ads have started reflecting that, I think, in a bigger way. The one thing people haven't written so much about is what you just touched on. Like, the fear is really gone and the ambition is really back. Now it's up to us to execute, but this notion of being fearful or cautious, like the ambition inside the walls of the company is just crazy high. Now we have to go execute, but it's such a better place to be in than a culture that's kind of fearful and very cautious about everything. And so, let's go execute in 2016. Yeah. There are big business model decisions we made this year. Windows 10 free upgrade was the biggest. Huge. Office freemium. These are gargantuan. These are company changing decisions. OneDrive take back is a is a way to anger a bunch of diehard fans, particularly in the way we did it. And in that case, if anyone had seen the math, I don't think they would have questioned the actual economics. Why did we put ourselves in that place in the first place? That was another mistake that we had made, sort of a year earlier. But you guys have covered it super well. The economics were totally unsustainable. The way we did the communications was very rushed because of a major publication that was going to print something that was very damaging and was not true. And so we felt like we had to get in front of it, and we just weren't ready. Right. And we had given ourselves a couple more months to get everything lined up, to do it all in one fell swoop. OneDrive for business, OneDrive for consumer, how we grandfather people, blah, blah, blah. And we just were not ready. But the alternative of having a very damaging, borderline false story run in a massive publication, was just, Frank and I just couldn't let that happen. And we just didn't do a good enough job in the sprint to beat the story, to get the communications in the shape that they needed to be. And so the economic decision was easy. We made the economic decision incorrectly a year earlier. And then when we saw the usage just take off, and you have 400 million or whatever it is, and you're upgrading gazillion Windows 10 machines, and they're all using OneDrive, which is great, but you've got to use it in a way that's economically sustainable. Those are some of the things that went into it.